my friends. Welcome to another episode of Hobby Ramblers. I'm Bill from Dragontooth Miniatures, and I'm joined today by Mr. Ari, our resident Russian.
Yep. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Ari. Yes. So why don't you tell us what you're working on today, because your camera is not on.
Well, unfortunately, I wanted to work on some bolt-action Soviets, but I seem to have painted them up yesterday. So,
you preemptively painted them up already.
So I'll see, maybe I'll do some dry brushing, doing some touching up on them, trying to make them look a bit better, do some basing maybe.
Alright man. Do you want to turn on your camera so everyone can see?
Sure, 1 moment.
Excellent. Well, we got quite a few views, which I was pretty surprised on our first Hobby Ramblers, session. So that was pretty good. That was really good.
Alright, so
there you go.
Here's most of them.
Oh, nice! They're tank riders.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe converting some of them into tank riders. So, and then the turret. Well, there goes one of them. It's over here with I think they're meant to be a mortar team.
A mortar team. Oh yeah, I see them. Yeah.
Yep.
So I've got some US Marines, which I'm going to be working on pretty soon. So, we might have a little bolt action game coming up soon, Mr. Ari.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Definitely. Alright then, so what I'm working on today are my much promised warriors again. So this is what they look like right now. So I will be applying some undershading, some shadows, using this through the airbrush because, saving a bit of time, and also a little bit of paint as well, because the alternative to doing this is just doing this manually by airbrush. By dry brushing. So I'm going to be using this AK painting, AK11113 chocolate chipping. All right. And then I'll be doing some of the AK black in the really dark recesses. And I've got some contrast for lupus pink, just to, if I feel like, what I like to do on my biological, flesh and stuff like that is I always like to add in a little bit of pink here and there, just to make things a little bit interesting. Because I feel like as with human skin, you see shades of purple and blue sometimes, especially with our veins. So you can see there on the camera, I've got some blue veins over there. So on a lot of animals, that is also the same if they have exposed skin. So some shades of pink and blue sometimes you'll see on my paint jobs for skin, just to make it a bit more interesting. Alright then. Ari, can you hear me? Hello? Ari? Hello? It seems like he has lost connection. Well, we shall be pushing forward then. So I'm just gonna add a few drops of this AK chocolate chipping. And I'm gonna add in some airbrush flow improver. Let me just see what's happening with Ari. While we wait for Mr. Ari to come back. Hope everyone's having a great week. I've had an absolute hectic of a weekend, an insanely hectic weekend. It's just insane. So I had 240 games over the weekend, one of which was with Ari, and 1,000 Suns for this Tyranids. very interesting results from that.
Went quite well.
Yeah. Oh, there you are, you're back!
Oh, I just snuck off to get some water.
Ah, okay, I see. Yeah, I was just going through my process about like, you know, what I was doing, you know, to my knits today.
What do you reckon would be a good texture paint to base the Soviets on? I was thinking Martian iron crust, but I don't think there have been Soviets on Mars.
Yeah, I don't think so too. And also I think they would be a little bit it would be a little bit bright for the battlefields of World War II. I would probably recommend like
Astrogranite?
not astrogranite. You want something like brown, something a bit more earthy.
Bit more earthy. What do I have? Mordant earth?
You could do mordant earth, yeah. That would work.
Is that the one I have? Yep. Yeah, and then maybe just a dry brush of brown over that.
Yep, correct. Okay, I'm gonna be... Can this thing even fit this? Ugh. Oh my gosh, yes it does. That is, you can see how strained that paint, that holder is.
Huh. It doesn't look too good for it. Nope.
That's okay, it's an old one anyway.
So I was actually very surprised with the bolt action whole packaging and everything. Most of the miniatures actually didn't have sprues to take them off of.
Oh yeah. Some
Yeah, because I was
may have a little bit of flash, but you know, other than that, not too bad at all.
Because I was thinking, how am I gonna get them off of the sprues if they're, you know, pewter minis, and if it's the same as the Warhammer ones where everything is on a sprue, I was like, that's gonna take a long time. It's probably gonna wreck my clippers.
Oh yeah. You were asking me about that.
Yep. The toe clippers did quite well, actually.
Yep.
So, and being metal, they're pretty easy to strip, right? Just any sort of chemical works.
Yeah, pretty much you can just put like the harshest chemicals on them. Because they're metal. They're just like, oh yeah, don't they take anything, yeah.
Yeah, but the glue might come off.
I mean, it is super glue, man. You know, it's known to be quite
Strong?
quite strong, yes. Yeah, so how'd you feel about, you know, our game over the weekend, Mr. Ari?
That was very good. Enjoyed it. Great game.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Learned quite a bit about Tyranids.
Yeah.
Um,
And Mr. In my second game, against the Death Guard, it was pretty, it was pretty much the same as well. I killed a Demon Prince with the you know, because he kept failing to cast psychic powers, like you know, close to my Neurothrow.
Ah, I see.
Very surprised by that. It was like, oh wow, this is actually making a huge difference. It's like, wow.
Yeah. I could imagine that puts a stop to anything with a lot of psychic, like Grey Knights, Thousand Suns, any sort of demons, maybe even other Tyranids if you played your cards right.
Yeah. Well, Tyranids versus Tyranids is oddly very close because, like, Tyranids are very good against Tyranids.
Yeah.
Oddly enough.
Yeah, like the best bugs, being the Exocrine, Hive Guard, they're actually surprisingly good when it comes to taking out the Tyranid models. For example, the Exocrine's shooting is almost a perfect match against the Swarm Lord, or taking out swaths of gaunts. Then you have your Hive Guard, which can probably crack through any of those bigger bugs.
Yeah, it's very weird.
I wonder how Nidzilla against Nidzilla would work, though.
It's basically who's, like, gonna charge in first.
Maybe. Maybe he's got more CPs to spend.
No, because a lot of Nidzilla is about, like, spending CPs on one person rather than everyone.
Yeah, so putting the voracious appetite and fighting even after death.
Yeah.
So it just becomes one of those things where it's like, who can roll better?
Well, who can get into the combat faster and, which combats are most important.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, I was really shocked. Like, whoa, okay, I would...
The poor psychers.
Yeah, I would never in a million years be, like, thinking, like, oh, wow, I'm literally gonna, just shut down Magnus. And it's like, oh, okay.
Well, I mean, he is just a shard of what he once was.
Yeah, I was like, this is new. This is very new.
Definitely. Demon Primarch, just nope.
Yeah, it happened with, like, Mortaran a few times as well, where it was just like, he was trying to cast something like a casting value of 7 as Nurgle, that is Nurgle's number, and there are quite a few psychic powers that have that casting value that you do want to cast. And I just went like, I just did the whole, like, CP thing for Kronos, and just went like, you only have 1 dice to cast that, my friend. And
Oh no.
it immediately took, like, just deeply mortal wounds. And, because the auto failed. Because, he wasn't able to roll, like, an 8 on, like, a 6-sided dice.
Well, I mean, that is a common flaw with many armies, not being able to roll an 8 on a d6.
Man, what's wrong with these armies, man? Like, you're just gonna get good. Roll that 8 on a 6-sided dice.
Yeah.
Oh man. Whew. Yeah, so my in the beginning my mixture was a little bit too diluted, so I'm just going over it again because I feel like yeah, it needs to be a little bit darker.
So the GW Air paints, are they slightly more diluted than the normal ones?
Yes, but they're nowhere near as diluted as you want them to be, like when it comes to airbrushing.
What consistency are they if you compare it to diluting just like, for example, Air Mephiston Red and a just Mephiston Red base diluted with water? Like, what ratio would it be around?
Like, here's the thing about, like, air range paints, right? Air range paints are, like, as a paint range, are good, to directly apply onto models. So like, I use them. I recommend them for like newer hobbyists if they don't really know how much dilute paints.
I see.
If you don't know how to do that yet, then yeah, they're a really good tool.
Because I usually prefer to paint with very diluted paint. So I was just thinking, maybe instead of using, more water and, going back to the water pot, just to get air paints, add a bit of water and call it a day.
Yeah, that would be pretty good.
Do they cost any more than normal paints?
Yes, they do. The big ones, so you're paying that.
They're big ones, so you get more.
Arguable. They are $24, bro. No, sorry.
You get more, right?
You get as much as you get like a shade. Like they're in the big shade pots.
Okay, so it's understandable. I think. I hope.
So the only reason I get like air paints is if it's like a really specific purple that I really want from GW. Like I'll get it, and because I'm rushing through it. So my mixture with GW air paints is basically like it's a 50-50 mix. So for me it's really worth it because like it feels like a gigantic container of like airbrush paint for me. But if you're just applying it straight, it's like
What do you think of the rule? I think it's like the 10 to 90 rule about learning a new technique, where 10% of your time should be watching videos or researching, and then 90% of the time you should actually be trying to do the technique. You reckon that's a good ratio, or you should practice the technique more or do a bit more research? What do you reckon is like the best way to pick up a new technique in painting?
I would say it's a good ratio. It's a good ratio. It's very true because I've seen a few people that like try and do things differently from that ratio, and most of the time it's just like it doesn't work out too well. It just doesn't work out.
Interesting.
So that's my take on that. Whereas for me, for a very long time, like I was like extremely stubborn with painting. Like I used to paint with shades a lot and stuff like that. And well, it was good for a while, but eventually it got to the point where I wanted to improve, and the best way I did that was by asking my GW manager and just submitting myself to like the endless questioning of like what I need, and I just sucked it up and basically got the paints and all the paints that I needed.
And then?
And then that's how my hobby journey really started.
So you really, got a stranglehold on the whole thing, really went all in.
Yeah. That was when my hobby really went from I am doing this to game and to win, and now I'm doing this to to improve myself, to improve something.
So it turns out I've actually been doing dry brushing the wrong way for quite some time now.
What do you mean? What happened?
Well, I for once attempted to scrape the paint off using a something that can absorb paint, like a paper towel, and it was actually a lot easier to control the amount of paint that stayed on the bristles. I would just wipe it off on like the palette until I assumed there was enough paint off the bristles. And it was a bit harder to control how much paint there was. Sometimes I wouldn't have any paint left, sometimes I'd have too much and it would make streaks. So...
Yeah, bro, like, what the hell? Who taught you how to dry brush?
YouTube.
What?
Yeah, I just went on YouTube and they're like, yeah, use a paper towel. And I'm like, I don't need a paper towel, just use a palette.
Oh, so it's user error then.
Well, yeah, the instructions were quite complex.
What do you mean, use a paper towel? What's complex? Alright, at least you got it, Ari, in the end.
At least I understand now.
Yeah, at least you understand now.
Yeah, that was actually very surprising when I tried using a paper towel and it was slightly better quality.
What does slightly better mean?
Well, 1 minute, I'll be back.
Right. So yeah, I'm still fairly new to airbrushing, so in terms of airbrush control, I think I'm getting the hang of it. But in terms of like...
sorry, I'll be back in about 15-20ish minutes. Just give me a moment.
Sure, dude. So, but like in terms of like, how long I should be like pressing down the button, like, in one area with an airbrush, I'm still like, still getting the hang of that, so. More keen-eyed observers would probably have noticed that, like, yeah, it's like I get pretty close to the model sometimes with the airbrush, and that obviously like occasionally screws up, moves the paint around a little bit, because I keep forgetting like, oh wait, air's constantly on. But, I'm learning, we're all learning here, so, Mr. Ari is going to be learning a new game bolt action, and I'm, learning to use a new tool. All the same, all good, all good. Alright then. So what I'm trying to do is basically get like a really nice shadow effect from the bottom. So like where the bottom is a little bit like darker and like dustier and more brown. So it'll start like to show. Once I put in like the black in the really dark recesses. But like this is just a build up to it because I do want a little bit more of a gradient on my shadows. So my stand. Oh, okay. Come on, set it all. Come on. Okay, jeez. I don't think these things were designed with using 40mm bases on these in mind, but we shall persevere. Persevere, because this is just yeah. So I've so the next step after this is once I've done all the undershading and I'm really I'm happy with it, I'll hit this with an oil wash. So I rarely use shades now, regular acrylic shades, ever since I started experimenting with oil washes, and it has been quite the journey, many mistakes, but quite frankly, like I really like it. Like, I really like using oil washes. I feel like, there's definitely a lot more variety. You can get a lot more control with oil washes, like much more than you would with, like, acrylic washes. And yeah. And then after the oil washes dry, I am going to hit this guy with an oil highlight. So you'll have some. So that is something. That's something quite different to, like, using acrylic paints. So look forward to that, guys. Look forward to that. Excellent. So let's see, what can I talk about? We're at 15 minutes. Well, well, let's talk about, well, let's talk about what I think about GW paints. So after using other people's paints for a while, since I left GW, I have to say that GW paints are quite good quality. Like, I will freely admit that they are good quality paints. They are good quality pigments, they do a good job. And if you're a new person just getting into hobby painting, they're a good place to start, because they've got their own painting system, which other painting brands do not have. Like, it's very strange. There is no set, like, recipes, and what I find is that, like, when I was teaching people how to paint, set recipes are extremely important, because they just don't know. Like, so if you walk into a paint shop, right, and you're searching for, like, let's say you want, like, a dark blue, a mid-tone blue, and a light blue. In most painting ranges, there are about, like, maybe 3 different choices of each, and you as a new hobbyist feel like, hey, I'm gonna make a mistake, like, buying this stuff. Like, I don't know what to get. Or, more commonly, you'll get one of the 3 options of each, and you'll go home, and then you'll start using it, and then you'll think, like, even though it might be the correct one, you'll think, like, oh, it can't be right, it doesn't look exactly like, what the example looks like, even though it is the correct one. So, like, having a set guideline and a set, like, painting system that's, like, written out and, like, is a really good idea that GW has done, and is something that I really wish that, like, other paint brands would follow, because yeah, even I, as an experienced, like, well, semi-experienced painter, feel that sometimes when I'm going through, like, a different paint brand, like, I feel a bit lost sometimes. And if I feel lost, like, how is a new person meant to navigate all this? This is like, this is just way too confusing. So it just puts people off, which I can't fault them. I really can't fault anyone for making that. So I do know that Vallejo does sell painting sets. Like, you can buy these like Vallejo painting sets, and they'll give you like some really good instructions on how to use them, and some recipes in that. So I have a few of them, but I feel like, putting that information behind a painting set is a little not much. It makes it like a little bit inaccessible for especially new buyers, like new hobbyists. So that's my take on that. Like, I do of course understand that, like, most miniatures do not have their own, like, in-house like paint brand, just like GW. So they're able to, like, Games Workshop is able to put on those painting recipes on the back of the boxes, because they want you to buy their paints. Like, it is their in-house company. Like, whatever you buy in terms of paints goes directly to them. So yeah, that's that would be that's my little gripe about that. Another thing would be, I really feel like the GW shades have kind of decreased in quality over the years. I'm gonna ask Ari about this, about his experience with like what seemed to be a defective like GW shade, where it dried really creamy and cloudy, especially in the recesses. So as a Games Workshop manager, I've encountered like entire like batches of that, like occasionally, where I've sold it to a customer, they put it back, I've done a one-to-one exchange, the same thing happens. So that's really weird. That's very strange. I've never had that happen that frequently before. So in my time in Australia and in my time in Singapore, 90% of the time they work. But recently, I've been having a lot more issues with them. Like much more issues with them. I don't know if it's like, they've got a new paint supplier, a new maker, like, something like that. But it's a little not on GW. Come on. Like, those paints are pretty expensive. Like, if it's a QC issue, that really should be solved. That really should be solved. Alright, I'm just gonna finish off the browns because I don't need them anymore. And I can switch off. Switch on. Put some airbrush flow improver, quite a bit of it actually. Then probably just purge that out as well, just a little bit more, just to clear out any dry paint in there, the nozzle. There we go. Then I'm gonna add some black. I hope that everyone is enjoying the content of these hobby nights. And yeah, I think the number one complaint I've had about the Wildlands series is that the audio quality is really bad, and there is a story to that, right? So the story is, I used to have a buddy of mine that used to edit like all my videos, all the audio of my videos, and he just talked me down and told me, like, you know, he's going through like a pretty serious depressive episode. So he cannot. Oh, jeez. So he cannot. Whoa. Okay. Camera moved. So he cannot. He just can't edit stuff for me anymore. He's going to therapy. He's doing, you know, all that good stuff. So I don't need to, you know. So I just yeah. So he's no longer doing that. But the key thing about that story is that he did recommend me to buy a Yeti Blue microphone, and the Yeti Blue microphone is all right for the purposes of, like, you know, just if you're in a quiet room. But because we're recording in a group and we're recording around a table in a game shop, it I think I found out after like the first or second session that it really just wasn't up to scratch for what we needed, and unfortunately, like, you know, we'd already done the sessions, so yeah. So right now I'm in a little bit of a predicament where should I push on with the audio like that and just continue releasing the Wildbot episode just so that, like, you guys can follow the whole story of our D&D group, or should I just skip all those, like, sessions that we did using the old mic and the new mic here right now, and just release the episodes using the new mic. So I'm just mulling over that decision. So if you guys could, like, comment and tell me what you guys would like, that would be really helpful. That would help at all. Because yeah, well, I'm doing all of this. I'm doing everything for you guys. Well, this is I want to make this like your channel. So if you want me to do something, you want me to review something, you want me to, like, paint something, just hit me up, tell me, you know, message me on Instagram or, like, you know, Facebook. I'm a little slower on Facebook, just because, like, I don't know why. Facebook has been really weird notifying me, like, with, like, messages and stuff like that. Even, like, with new subscribers, it is very iffy on notifying me when that happens, which is odd. So yeah. Give me a heads up on Instagram at DragonTooth Makes. Also, I don't know if you guys know that I am doing commission painting, so this is one of my personal projects. That you can commission me to paint one of your centerpiece models for you if you'd like, and yeah, I can get it done, like, usually pretty quickly. Unless, okay, so I'm very honest with my commission painting projects, so I will straight up say, like, you know, I will straight up admit that if a project really interests me and I'm really into like a faction or whatever, into your faction, or if I'm really motivated to paint it, it'll get done extremely quickly, like maybe like even sometimes within the week. If I'm not, it'll take maybe like a couple of weeks. That's how it goes. Like at the end of the day, like, you know, I'll be very straightforward with it, and I'll go, like, you know, if you're telling me to, like, paint, like, you know, ultramarines, like a lot of ultramarines, and like the same, like, you know, paint it like exactly like, you know, the GW style, you know, heavy metal style, right? I can do it, of course, but it's extremely boring. It is a a very dull process for me. So I will be honest with that and say like, oh, it is going to take a little bit more time than it would usually take. Or something like, oh, if you ask me to paint like, something with skin, a lot of skin on it, or maybe even like a Xenos. Yeah, that's gonna go by real quick, just because I love painting Xenos. I love painting like, aliens. I just really love painting aliens. It's yeah. So now that the black is on, you can now really see like where the shadows are darkest, and that transition coming along very, very nicely. Like I'm really like so I used to do this technique using dry brushing methods, which was good, but it took a long time. So yeah. So there you go. This is before I've done the oil shades. So obviously, if you're following along at home and you do have an airbrush and you're doing this with an airbrush, you can obviously stop here right now because it does look very nice. It does look very nice right now, but we can still take this further, which is what I want to do. So I'm gonna try my best. Hold on a minute. So sometimes on an airbrush, sometimes a bit of paint does like dry on the nozzle, on the little like nozzle. So that's why I have this Q-tip here, which is a little bit wet. So that's there for me to just scrape that off, so it doesn't obstruct it. So you'll know when that happens when you hear like when you start like when you'll spray and then like almost nothing comes out. Alright, excellent. So we've got the claws, we've got everything there. Ooh, okay, I got a little bit of a shock. It's like, huh, okay. Had a little bit of static on my hands. Yeah, I might just wanna... do that. Just do that. So I just want some definition on the top. The camera. Okay, so I just wanted some definition on the top, just some shadows here and there. So that'll be good. Because I'll also be doing an oil paint highlight on these guys in red. So one of my most favorite oil paints to highlight with is red, because the pigment ratio, like the amount of pigmentation and the brightness that you get with like oil paints is on a completely different level. So if you wanted like a super vibrant like red, oil paints are the way to go. Oil paints are the way to go. They really are the way to go. Oh my gosh. So right now, what I'm doing is I want to really reinforce that by darkening the areas, really darkening the areas around the reds and the recesses, because one of the easiest ways of getting red to appear brighter is to make everything around it look darker. So instead of trying to get like a red that's like super bright, you just want the area around it to be darker than the red, and then it'll start popping out just like that. See? So that contrast, between dark to light is there, and the red looks much darker, much more defined than what this is normally. So, catch my drift. So, like that. See? Hopefully I'm explaining this, clearly enough. YouTube is still pretty new to me. The content is still pretty sporadic, I would say. The schedules, I'm trying my best to keep up with the schedules, but like work is certainly like, a little bit hectic, here and there. So I'll have to plan around that, which is the main thing stopping me from doing this more consistently and frequently. But that's fine. That's life. That is life. We all gotta deal with it at some point, so that's okay. Oh my gosh, yes. So one of the most satisfying things that I find about painting is that, like, especially Tyranids, is that whenever I see that like a particular like area just looks like it's incredibly insectoid, like it looks like natural, like it just belongs. Like you'd see that like in nature. That's what I know, like, I've done something right. I've done something right. So the way I really like to paint my Tyranids is using natural colors, using things where like taking cues from nature, taking a lot of cues from nature, taking a lot of cues from like the insect world, like because they're meant to be looking a little bit more insectoid than dinosaurish, than reptilian. At least mine are meant to be. So I want to really emphasize that like kind of like segmented body, and that like, funnily enough, okay, so in lore, the Tyranid skin is not just skin. It is somewhat like of a tough hide. It's almost like a soft exoskeleton in a way. A really soft exoskeleton. So that's why like you'll sometimes see like these little split veins, like on the Tyranid models. Let me put this down and I'll show you. Like oh my gosh, okay, doing this on camera is really hard. Like that on the arm. Yeah, so that I believe is meant to be exposed muscle. So Tyranid organisms very rarely have a full set of digestive organs, because the hive mind produces Tyranid warrior organisms with enough energy, with enough kilojoules of body fat to last them what it deems to be required for the battle. And after the battle, more advanced Tyranid bioforms, like these warriors, right? They would climb up the capillary towers and go into suspended animation, and not have to use like much of that energy, that stored up energy. So either these guys would just die in a fight, or they'll be in hibernation for storage, to be used for the next glorious Tyranid conquest.
Learning Tyranid lore, I see.
Yeah.
I have returned.
Yes, you have returned. So this is the second one I've done with the black dude, so you can see.
Why have you darkened them? Why have you darkened them?
Because that's how you get like that contrast between dark to light. So yeah, so that
I quite liked the bright yellow skin.
So the yellow skin will be coming back. So this is what I mean. So it looks a little bit more interesting than this, right? Like this looks a lot more interesting than this because of like differences in dark to light. And of course, I'm emphasizing the segmented body parts of the Tyranid as well, like, you know, in terms of the joints. And it's a really good way of like, so making things darker around reds is a really good way of making reds appear lighter than they are, appear much brighter. So for example, if I just did this, right, the red, yes, it's bright, but it kind of gets hidden away, whereas this, on the left, like on the tabletop, really stands out.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's a little bit of like hobby technique right over there that I was sharing to our dear viewers. And also just
indeed.
Talking about a bit of Tyranid lore. So yeah, so... Oh yes, Mr. Ari, could you talk about like your experience with like what is with a very troublesome pot of GW shade?
I had a troublesome pot of chili shade.
Yeah. That time
Did I?
where it dried like all creamy and white and weird.
Oh, on the macaron.
Yeah, on the Dimacaron, yeah.
Was that the wash, or was that just a bit of the debonding agent or release agent?
Debonding. That's definitely not debonding, because if it's debonding agent, your undercoat would be affected by that, not just the shade. So as soon as your undercoat goes down, it should be like kind of like running off the.
I see.
Yeah, running off the model, rather than like it's.
I see.
Yeah. Rather than just like, you know, the shade doing its thing.
Yeah. Well, the macaron. Well, I mean, I think it'd probably be better if I talk about the whole thing as a whole experience, not just about the wash.
Oh yeah, sure. Go for it.
Yeah. So, the resin, I was actually very surprised. I think this was my first resin model. It was quite easy to take apart and wash and all of that. Some of the bits were a bit bent and a bit weird, but with a bit of epoxy, I just filled in the socket and everything fit quite nice. It was quite easy to assemble, except for like a few bits, like I think it was the tail and the head, which were a bit hard to hold in place for quite some time. What else was there? Oh, the instructions? Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of people say this. They weren't the best instructions, but they were decent. I could get the gist of how to put it together. So I primed it with GW, I think it was Corax White. I paint High Fleet Kraken, so that's the sort of off-white yellowish skin tone with the red carapace. I decided to, I didn't really want to spend too long painting it, so I decided that I'd really rely a lot upon washes to paint it. So I washed the skin. The first time it was, it was decent, but there were quite a few bits which I missed. A few areas where the wash was too thin or too thick or something. So I came over it with a second coat of wash.
Yep.
It was a bit better, but there were still some recesses and some bits that were white. Yeah, that was that. Then after that I painted a little fleshy bits with I think it was Carabug Crimson. I used Seraphim Sepia for the skin. The Carabug Crimson actually went on quite well. I don't recall any of the fleshy bits having white on them. Yep. But the carapace, which I painted with very diluted red, it had a bit of the same white sort of thingies show through. Well, it is what it is. Overall, it's a pretty good experience with my first resin model. Very nice, I enjoyed it. It wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
Sounds like a sponsored video.
Yes. So, 3D print.
3D print? Maybe.
Well, basically, the most annoying thing I find with resin miniatures is always the TLC after you build and paint it. So they can warp just after. Yeah, if they're stuck in a very warm or environment for too long. They're a lot easier, so resin is a much more brittle material. So unlike plastic, if you drop a resin model, it is just going to shatter.
That doesn't sound fun.
As in shatter, as in it'll just not
fragments.
Flames will go everywhere. It'll just break like glass.
Ooh.
Shards of your mini are gonna go everywhere, and you'll see it drop in slow motion. And yeah, as it just disintegrates. All the spikes are gonna go everywhere. A piece of a scythe is gonna go one way, and a piece of a carapace is gonna go another way.
You ever dropped a resin model?
Yes.
Well, I can see why you can explain the experience so well.
The Finecast, it was quite common because a lot of the characters were in resin. Were in Finecast resin. Terrible.
Was it good quality? Was it good quality?
No.
Oh.
No, it definitely was not good quality. When you dropped it, it would just shatter like glass. I once saw a buddy of mine when we were playing a game. He dropped his Tigerius. That was in Finecast. I had never seen a Space Marine shatter into pieces until that day.
It's always sad to lose a model. It's twice as sad to lose a character. And I assume it's about 5 times as horrible when you lose a resin character.
Yeah, because when you drop a plastic mini so plastic minis generally they'll bend. They'll just bend a little bit. Whereas metal minis, they'll break at the joints where you've glued them on with super glue. So they'll break at the weakest point, which is always the joins of the glue. Resin miniatures? No, you're not gonna get that lucky.
Gonna shatter.
By shatter, I mean it'll break a hand off and you didn't glue the hand on. So it doesn't matter how solid the resin piece is, it will just go explode.
Can't resin also degrade or something? Is that a thing?
Over time, yes.
Because I remember watching a video and they're like, use super glue. This super glue brand is very good. The bond will probably stay longer, and after the resin itself degrades, the bond will still be there. I was like, wait, what? Your model can just start disintegrating one day?
Yeah.
Biodegradable, I guess.
Not really biodegradable. It'll just stop having its structural, integrity.
Doesn't sound as helpful to nature.
No. It will still be very toxic to nature. Very toxic. Very non-recyclable.
But I mean, I must say, the Macron had lots of fine details. It was very nice. I didn't actually have to clean it up as much as people told me I'd have to. So I guess they're getting better.
No, that should be the bare minimum, considering like how much a minimum Forgeworld charges for these things. Like such a premium. They really charge a massive premium for these things.
Oh,
Even though, like, technically speaking, resin is a bit of an inferior material.
Is it?
It's cheaper, way cheaper than plastic.
It's cheaper, but like, you know, it's like low skill floor, high skill ceiling. So despite plastic being, you know, generally more so you get the same results more frequently. With resin, it can either be very bad or very good, and that very bad and very good have, you know, a wider range than plastic.
No. Plastic is an extremely high ceiling in the miniature production, like, you know, in the miniature production scene. Plastics are always seen as, like, you know, just way better quality. They are much better sculpts, much more well thought out because of the way plastics need to be made to be mass producible, whereas resin, so like plastics need to be injection molded into a titanium mold. That titanium mold could be upwards of like $30,000 to $70,000.
Wow.
And like in one run of that mold could be like, you know, several tons, you know, inside, like, you know, in weight, and it could produce hundreds in one go. Hundreds of models in one go. Resin, you could do it on a table with a very small silicon mold that costs $50.
Yeah,
and that is exactly what other miniature companies have done to very good quality. Like, how they do it and how the process of molding has nothing to do with the quality of the miniature that comes out of it. It has everything to do with how good the molds are. A silicon mold can be as high detail as a titanium mold. The only difference is that that silicon mold is going to degrade faster than that titanium mold. And you have to replace that more frequently.
So that's where resin gets its expensiveness from?
Yes, it's the molds. But the molds are not expensive at all. In fact, like, Forgeworld is the only company that I know that charges an absolute premium for resin miniatures. Usually resin miniatures are quite like non-premium.
I mean, I guess you're mainly paying for the brand, you know, they promise good quality.
Yeah, and they don't.
Well, I mean, from my one experience with the Macron, it was absolutely amazing quality.
I believe that the Macron was not an official Fortress model, dude.
I mean,
I believe
perhaps.
the Macron was a China Forged Macaron.
Yeah, it was.
Oddly enough, if you pay, if you go for the higher end recasts, not that I am supporting that, but from what I have seen and what I've experienced through other people, and like, if you pay a premium, like the higher tier recasters, to do the recasting, they're equal to, if not better than Forgeworld.
Well, I kind of wanted to keep the fact that I have a recast secret, but well, time for me to get deported by GW, I guess.
No, you won't, because you don't go to, like, you know, you don't play in a GW store. We play in an LGS, and, you know, everyone's fine with it.
Let's hope for the best.
Like, because, like, so I have an official barbed Hierodule. When that thing arrived, I had no less than 3 pieces that were missing from it.
Ooh. That doesn't sound good.
Oh, whoops. I was so angry, like, I jolted my camera. I was so enraged by that experience. Hold on, let me just get that back into...
Where are my Hierodule pieces?
Yeah, and it was some pretty big Hierodule pieces as well. It was like a whole arm.
Oh, how did they forget to put that in?
Yeah, exactly. And also, several parts of my carapace, of the main body carapace, are actually broken. That's not meant to be in multiple pieces, by the way. That whole carapace is attached to the body. It's in one piece, and it was just smashed.
Well, I mean,
but the thing is, right, if it was smashed during shipping, the pieces would still be in the bag. But the pieces weren't in the bag. So this thing made it through QC with a broken carapace and was put into the bag afterwards.
Well, not to play devil's advocate here, but with my Macron, it had a bit of, bends and kinks in the, stuff, but I didn't really, put too much attention to that because with organic things, they tend to be a bit bendy. If it was a tank which had, a huge dent in it, well, that's an issue. But, with a few bends here and there, a slightly cracked carapace, adds a bit of texture.
No. Thing is, right, a slightly cracked carapace, I could accept. A completely broken piece of a carapace that the pieces aren't in the bag, I can't accept. Like, a bent piece is expected for resin because that is one of the downsides of using resin. You get the detail, but just the material itself is much more susceptible to heat and warping when it comes to shipping. Everyone knows that, when it comes to resin. Everyone expects it. But what I do not expect is that when I spend X amount of money from a well-reputed source, that my stuff comes in with a missing piece that was broken off a solid piece. It's not in the bag, it's not in the box. Somebody dropped it somewhere, or somebody smacked it on the table too hard somewhere, maybe like in the QC station. It fell on the ground, it was lost, and was put into a bag to be sold to a customer. That's not acceptable. And it's happened a few times.
Well, when you put it that way, I mean, I'm actually more interested in, what would happen if you were there and you were, inspecting the piece, and you dropped it and it shattered, maybe, they didn't want to lose their rank or their job, so that's why they just quickly hit it and said, yep, it's can be shipped off, instead of, bringing it up to the higher ups and going, well, I dropped it, and, then suffering severe repercussions for that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Then the other question is, what kind of company culture are you breeding that, reporting a problem is, could get you fired? That's not a good company. That's not a very good corporate culture to deal with, dude.
I mean, yeah, I understand that, but, I mean, it wasn't really, the company's fault. You kind of dropped it, so that's where I could see the mix-up happening.
No, it is. Because it's the company's fault for not giving the avenue, for punishing people for dropping things. Yes, you don't want people to drop things. You don't want them to damage stock, but when it happens, you don't punish the guy, you fix it, and you move on, and you just go yeah, try not to do that again, bro.
Yeah, fair enough. Now thinking about it, it's kind of silly of you.
That is extremely silly. That breeds an entire corporate culture where it's just a bunch of yes men, telling you how great your product is, and with no actual internal self-critiquing, which is really dangerous. That is such like that, like if that is what is happening, like I don't blame the guy like that dropped it. I blame the process of like so I blame Forge World for essentially making a process where why is there a guy, like an actual guy, QCing these models? Why is it not done using like automation? Why, like that kind of thing? Why is there not more automation in your production line? You know, where it's like, you know, this one guy isn't like doing everything and is not just signing off on everything. Like this is a little bit ridiculous. Come on. And also, yeah, for the price that like, you know, people are paying for it, they should be expected to 9 times out of 10 have like have a perfect model. Like, by perfect I mean all the pieces are in the bag. Pieces aren't broken that are lost. And yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'll just go eat lunch. I'll be back in quite some time, just a few minutes.
Oh, you're eating lunch?
Yep.
Oh, dude. Oh, okay. No worries, dude.
Yeah. Okay, see you soon.
See you in a bit. All right, we are back. All right, from that little intermission. Indeed. How was your you said lunch? I was quite surprised by that.
Oh, well, you know, dinner and lunch sort of combined together. Lunch.
Linner? You mean?
Maybe Linner.
Yeah, Linner sounds better. I could do Linner. Yeah, I had a bit of dinner as well.
That's nice.
Yeah, while you were away.
Say, for bolt action, HQs are considered, well, there's medics, forward observation people, what are they, officers, commanders, and, well, commissars, right?
Yes.
Right.
So commanders are basically your lieutenants and majors. Board observers are your, usually you can only have one of each, so like one artillery observer and one air observer. Yeah, and then you can have a medic, you can have, you know, anything else. I personally like my medics.
Yeah, I was thinking of maybe having a medic.
Oh, not because he's actually gonna do anything, he's just there to, like, you know, just as an extra order die. As an extra order die, as an extra like, unit to, like, you know, capture objectives.
Say, what are they, not really, what are they called? Yeah, the mortar observer people, it adds a +1 to their hit roll, right?
Oh, no.
Huh? What does it do then?
So what it does is basically you can draw a line of sight from the artillery observer if you are going to use a mortar. But, so that is more important if you're a howitzer rather than a mortar.
Yeah.
Because if you're a howitzer, you can go into direct fire mode and fire that thing like a, you know, like a gun, like a proper gun.
And I would assume it'd help a lot if you could just draw a line of sight from a little person somewhere rather than the actual howitzer.
Yep. Well, basically, like, you know, if they see like a howitzer in the middle of the road, they're gonna be firing at it really quickly. A little person in a building, they're like, what?
Well, they might if they know what it is, right?
Yeah, they might if they know what it is, and they actually have to actively hunt you down, like building to building, going like, where's that observer?
Can't they just see where it is?
There are rules for buildings and how you should like clear buildings and stuff like that, and it's really difficult to kill somebody in a building, unless you literally bring down the whole building on top of them.
fire like a couple HE shells from a tank into it. That'll do the job.
No, it takes much more than a couple of HE shells from a tank.
Really?
Yeah.
Are buildings that strong?
Buildings in general are quite strong.
Why don't they just build more of those during World War II?
They did quite a lot. That's why, like, so generally speaking, like, buildings, it takes a couple of shots from a medium howitzer to bring down a building.
A couple being two or quite a few? A couple being two or quite a few?
Like, one or two.
Okay.
Tanks, so the HE quality of tanks is usually really bad.
Oh.
Like, really bad. So the HE shell, in tanks is really, really bad. It's like several tiers lower than what the caliber of the gun is. So, like, for example, right, if you take a T-34-85, I believe it is only a small HE. It's like a HE D3, isn't it?
Probably.
Yeah.
Let me check the data sheet if I have it.
Yeah. It's really, really low. The only exceptions are the American Shermans with the low velocity 75s, and specialized howitzer carriers like the SU-152 and the KV-2s, all the Sherman jumbos. Other than that, or the Sturmtiger.
How are the rules for the Sturmtiger? I mean, I would assume that it's only like one shot per game.
Well, it's one shot every other turn.
Okay, so good enough.
Yeah, but if it shoots a building and hits, that building's going down.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and the rules for building collapse, if you're in a building, is basically you're pretty much dead. That whole squad's pretty much dead. There's no survival.
Really, you can't survive that?
Yes. Oh wait, good sir. Hold on, let me just wash out my airbrush. And I am back. Hello, good sir.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, yes. So
probably evening though.
Yeah. Yes, evening. So yeah, I'm back. I've washed out my airbrush. I'm just gonna go on to my Volupus Pink. I'm gonna do a bit of just some.
Is it pronounced Volupus or is it pronounced Volupus?
Volupus.
I always thought it was Volupus.
Volupus. I don't know. That's how I see it.
Maybe we should ask GW. You reckon they would know?
Maybe. It might know.
Perhaps.
I don't know. I think half the words they use sometimes, they just, don't know how to see themselves. Just like Robute Gilliman.
Robute Gilliman, huh?
Is it Gilliman or Gilliman? It's the debate rages on. The debate.
Very strange because, in other languages, I mean, you can make the excuse that, it's been translated, but GW is mainly English-based.
Yeah.
So how come their English things are, debated, but in other languages, it's like an actual proper pronunciation for most of their names?
Yeah. Well, it's basically because the sources of their names are basically inspired by French Romanesque and Germanic names, but it isn't there isn't just one source. That's the thing.
Indeed.
So it's the U could be pronounced differently in from German that is and French, and like especially like like if they're taking inspiration from like a Roman name.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is gonna get real difficult and real confusing real quickly because we're still debating on some of the pronunciations of like some Roman like letters. So yeah, that gets a bit tricky very quickly.
Hey, how do you usually paint the rim of your bases?
With a fairly white brush and just black. Why?
Oh, just black. I'm curious.
I mean, you can paint.
I also usually paint my base rims black.
Yeah.
But I mean, for something which is decently small but still somewhat large, so like something like bolt action. What I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint the base rims in different colors depending on the what the unit is. So if it's like infantry support, I'll do say blue. If it's HQ choice, I'll do it red. If it's just infantry, it'll be green to be able to distinguish a bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not like Warhammer where you can be like, oh, well, this guy's a sergeant because, he's got a huge sword, and, well, this one, oh, no, he's just a scrub because he's got a small laser gun. So they're a bit more rank and file, I would say.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you could do that. Honestly speaking, most of the time, like with sergeants, I just give them a different hat. The bolt action. Yeah. Like they're the only ones that are like not wearing a proper helmet. They're just got a a funny hat on.
Seems reasonable enough.
I'm sure my U.S. Marine major would always be like yelling at his at his ensign NCOs going like, Johnson, wear the bloody helmet.
No, I don't think I will. But I mean, on one hand, if you can distinguish between high-ranking officers and, just normal soldiers, it's quite easy to establish, command and stuff like that. But on the other, it'd be a lot easier to be picked off by enemy like snipers or something. Because, you could be like, oh, who do we shoot? Well, just shoot the guy with the funny hat. It's kind of understandable.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why most modern militaries don't really do that. They try to keep that to an absolute minimum. They try and keep the funny hats, to an absolute bare minimum.
It's such a shame.
Is it a shame?
Yeah. I mean, there should be a way to distinguish, right? And it shouldn't be something small like, oh, well, you see, if you're a normal foot soldier, we give you brown buttons for your shoes. But if you're an officer, oh, then you get shoelaces. Yes, indeed. It's like, no, you need effort to see that. Just have something like, if you're an officer, give him a red tunic.
Whoa!
Make him fairly easy to spot.
That's a little extreme, buddy.
Well, I mean, on one hand, yeah, you could argue that, but on the other, a tunic would probably provide you with some extra protection against blunt force trauma.
Sure.
Like, imagine you're standing there in the middle of the field, and then you hear, an explosion in the distance. You turn just in time as, a stone hits you square in the chest. But it's all good because you got a tunic. Now, if you didn't have a tunic, that might be an issue.
Yeah, but why does it have to be red?
Distinguish your rank.
And why doesn't everyone just wear a tunic?
Yeah, but they could, right? But like only the officers have a red one, and then say something super, high up in the chain, like I don't know, the general. He'll wear like a purple one with a golden trim.
What? Wow. Okay. I would say you would definitely get some style points in the battlefield if you rocked up with that.
Might make it a bit easy for enemy snipers to try find important linchpins, but it's a risk that they will be willing to take for their stylishness. Or maybe wouldn't.
Yeah, no. I definitely would not risk my life over style in the battlefield. It's
See, many people say that.
It's definitely a big no-no for me.
Perhaps.
Yeah, so right now I'm just very, very quickly just putting down a bit of the lupus purple on some of the little spines on the arms, just to differentiate them. Just make them a little bit more interesting to look at.
You airbrushing it on?
Yeah, just very quickly airbrushing it on.
Onto little spikes, and you're not getting that much overspill.
No, I'm expecting overspill because I want it to blend in. Yep. And that is, look, there's 6 of them, all good and done. So I'll go into my oil shades now. Boom. Boom. My boom. And boom. As I remove away, all these acrylic paints, and I will wash out my airbrush again. Store it away. I'll be right back. Entertain them, Ari.
Entertain? Oh, I heard, you guys were discussing Tyranid lore before. What interesting parts of the lore were there? Well, I don't think there's much about the lore that... I don't really know where you guys left off, so let's talk about the rules, I guess. So apparently, I think yesterday, Tyranids... Well, when was yesterday? Well, not yesterday when this is released, but I guess on the 23rd, the new Tyranid little rule book was meant to come out with some new extra rules, and Bill and I, we test played it. The Swarm Lord has gotten exponentially better. His Bone Swords now ignore invulnerable saves, which means that he can absolutely destroy any sort of character units which used to have invuns, like, I don't know, I had Magnus, so he shredded Magnus, he destroyed a knight. He just cuts the swaths into infantry with invuns. For example, if you had Termagants with the 6-up saves, well, you'd be throwing Termagants out the Swarm Lord, but if you were to slow him down, if you were playing, I think it was Jormungandr, which gives you a 6, Hydra gives you a 6-up Feel No Pain, or Invun. I think it's an Invun or something. Well, if you had an Invun, that no longer works. So the Swarm Lord has really gotten a lot better. What else was there that's interesting? We also have buffs to Leviathan, so we're kind of sort of boxed into playing Leviathan, but I think that's a pretty big issue, but they do make it a bit better with the new sort of relics or traits, which you can purchase for your models, and that's very interesting. And you get a new stratagem, which allows you for one turn to give one of your units a High Fleet adaptation of another High Fleet. So I play Kraken, so if I were to play Leviathan, I'd probably use one command point to allow my Gene Stealers to have the 3d6 advance and still rocket them up, while still getting buffs for Leviathan, because Leviathan has gotten a lot of buffs.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that? The new sort of thingies that Tyranids have gotten?
My only thing is that, like, I'm concerned it means that, like, we're not getting a codex for a very long time. Or that, we are going to get a codex and almost immediately this book is going to be out of date. It's not going to be usable. So that's my only concern with the book. I mean, it's like, it's all great. It's all great. Tyranids, we're finally getting something. But I view it with a little bit of suspicion. So, like, you know, buyer beware, be careful. We don't know what the new Xenos codex that is coming out is. And some of the rumors, actually quite a few of the rumors are saying it is going to be Tyranids. So, if it is Tyranids and you do buy this Warzone Octaris book, that, unless otherwise stated, that Warzone Octaris book is going to be immediately out of date and you cannot use that. The rules from that. Yeah. So, yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I guess we could see this as, you know, GW trying to, like, test run the new Tyranid things to see how it goes, and if that's the case, well, then they'll be able to make a slightly better codex.
Testers for that, dude.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, playtesters are a small
You should
amount of
not be
people.
playtesting with your general audience, with your mainline audience. That's bad, dude. Don't think of it like that, dude. That's really bad. That's really anti-consumer. Like, for example, right? If I buy a video game,
Yeah.
right, like a full-price video game, and in 6 months, another exactly the same video game comes out, but just better in every way, from the same company with the same title, comes out, and I cannot play that other video game anymore. Like, for whatever reason, like, you know, like, let's say, like, you know, on the Steam page, it gets deleted, it's not supported anymore. Okay. And to play that video game, you had to re-buy it again at full price. How would you feel?
Well, I think in this situation, video games are a very poor choice to make, because this is literally happening every time where video game companies are like, hey, we're making a video game, there's a bunch of bugs, would you like to buy it to get, you know, the,
Yes.
beta test? And then they're like, okay, let's pay more to get an unfinished game, and then as we go along, it'll probably get better. So, you know, I could see GW trying to do the same thing with Warhammer. Sort of.
Yeah. But that comparison is still very good, because it is exactly what they're trying to do. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I don't know. I like Tyranids.
I would say, no! That is not acceptable! Like, come on! Like, we've already gone through this with video games, man. Like, you know, video games are in such a poor state because of that, because of such predatory, like, you know, anti-consumer action like that. And, like, to do that on a smaller market, it will destroy the entire base for just miniature gaming in general. If that starts happening, and, like, you know, Games Workshop starts doing that, and other companies are, like, you know, incentivized to do that as well, that is the end of, like, you know, essentially, like, that is gonna put so many people off, like, you know, joining the hobby. So many people.
I guess so.
And that will be the beginning of the end of essentially, like, miniature hobbying as we know it. Because without the influx of new people into the miniature hobby scene, essentially within a couple of generations, miniature hobbying is just going to die out. It is just going to die out.
Yeah.
Because people are just going to get old, and they're just going to, you know, like, you know, as they get older, yeah, they lose, you know, they lose their vision, you know, they lose a good portion of their vision. And, you know, or maybe they're not as dexterous as they used to be, and they can't paint as well, or they can't move their models as gently as they want to.
Well, that's a very nice way to put it. I was just gonna assume you were gonna say that, as people, pass away due to natural causes and not as many people are brought into the hobby, eventually there'll be no one else left in the hobby. But yeah, I see your way's a lot nicer to phrase it.
Yeah. So in my time as a store manager, the most common reason why people leave the hobby, it is life. Life gets in the way. Things get in the way. They have a kid. They're on their second kid. They kind of need the extra time to be there for their children. They want to be as part of their lives. A little bit more. So, which is totally reasonable. And I feel for those people that are coming back after a long hiatus and everything's changed like this, I just have this feeling that we've just let them down in a way. So much has changed for the worse in the hobbying community. In a lot of ways, in terms of how products are being presented to us, the pricing structure of products, and all that kind of jazz. The seller's mentality of the products rather than actual consultative sales. Yeah, where you're really preying on you're very much preying more on the knee-jerk reaction, sales, rather than natural informed decision, consultative type of sales. Yeah. So I really feel yeah, that. I don't know. I really feel that for those people that are coming back, it'll be such a shock, and that we've let them down in a way.
All that stuff goes on.
Hello? Yeah? What? I went all auto a bit.
Right, so I was just saying that, when you were saying that, it's how when people come back and it's such a different thing, it's how, unfortunately, that you think that, you're just gonna leave and you're gonna come back and everything's gonna be the same, but unfortunately, things go on without you, and it could be quite surprising how much has changed, and not in a good way, so.
Yeah, but right now it's kind of changing in a really bad way when it comes to the FOMO, the limited edition releases and stuff like that. It's just this is not good. This is not good at all.
Well, the whole limited edition things, well, I think those are fine, but don't do them all the time. And don't make them as expensive as they are, maybe.
I think it's. I don't like the current trend. They're putting codexes in these limited edition runs. Oh
yeah, that's not very nice.
I really dislike that. The recent orc one, the what is it? The Beast Snagger orcs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's still the only way to get their codex.
Yeah.
And I'm wow, that's a time box.
Yeah, that's the only way you can play your army, which is and what they should do is, if they want to continue doing something like this, right, just have it slightly less, to a slightly lesser scale. So instead of a whole army, just be if you want to play, Raven Guard as your chapter, and there are no Raven Guard miniatures out there, so that their Marines are basically the same, but here have a Raven Guard-esque, lieutenant or something, and then if you want to play Raven Guard as an army, and Raven Guard as an army didn't exist, then have it released as a little book, or as a new section in your next codex, something like that.
Yep.
But
well, that's
printing it
that's what they used to be. But now it's like, like they've realized that like they can they can get a lot more money by like basically playing on the whole like we have very limited stocks of this is never coming out again, blah blah blah, and there are very limited sculpts in these things, blah blah blah, and they are really good, like and it's a really good value, blah blah blah.
It might just be a phase that they'll grow out of eventually.
I don't think so. That's not how companies work. Like, the more we feed into this thing, the more they'll keep doing it. They'll just keep pushing. They'll just keep pushing. It's the whole thing of like microtransactions again. Like, if you remember in the very beginning, it was only like little tiny microtransactions in the video game industry. But then it slowly got more and more and more. And now we,
have DLCs and stuff.
For DLCs and stuff, and now it's like gotten so bad that like in the UK, there are very heavy restrictions on microtransactions because it's been like linked to gambling addictions.
Yeah, I mean,
because of the loot box mechanics of it. So thankfully, there isn't a loot box mechanic in the miniature hobbying yet. But that's really dangerous. We're on the path right now, and it's just a bit like, it's concerning.
Oh no. I just thought of that in my mind, like, going over to, I don't know, my local game shop, and it's like, hey, we got this new product. It's like, oh, what is it? Oh, you see, it's a mystery packet. You could buy it and see what character you get. You could either get something that you need for your army, which is a 1 in 10 chance, or something that looks cool, but you'll probably never use on the tabletop. Would you like to take your chances? And people actually spending like thousands of dollars just to get that, limited edition lieutenant, or I don't know, mini swarm lord or something.
Yeah.
That'd be horrible.
Yeah.
It'd be great for GW, but horrible for everyone else's pockets.
It'll be horrible for as a consumer. It's just like, come on, guys. Like, I'm appreciative of the Christmas miniatures and even a Halloween miniature. I have always said, why do we not have a Halloween miniature?
Well, I mean, Halloween
is it would be such a wasted opportunity for Games Workshop, because we literally have in Age of Sigmar an entire faction that is all ghosts, and we're an undead faction. And you have that in 40k in Necrons as well. That is such a wasted opportunity, I think.
It is.
Something like that, which is fun and creative, and it's just it's expected that we're gonna get a new Halloween figure. That's fine. Instead of celebrating the season, that is alright. I think that's in good spirit. But what I dislike is in the middle of the year, getting a faction release box, i.e. the Black Templars recently, to get those specific models, you have to get that box.
Well, really? Oh god, no.
Yeah, as of right now, I believe that the Black Templars, the only way you can get those Black Templars, new Primaris Black Templars, is that box. They have not released them yet.
Interesting.
So you can buy Black Templars Codex, but you cannot buy those models.
Well, at least they've gotten better. So, you can get the Codex without getting the box.
No, that is the bare minimum. We should not be praising the bare minimum. It's not about getting better. It's basically because there was a bit of an outcry of why are the Beast Snaggers Codex only in this box? And people got angry about it.
Yeah, they still buy it, which is a bit contradictory if you want to actually get someone to listen.
The thing is, some people just don't, some people want it bad enough to buy it, but others are just hey, this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. like, as a company, like, you should not be like, this predatory. It's not good.
Yeah,
It's not
definitely not.
community overall. So it's not them improving. It's basically them just doing the bare minimum, and that shouldn't be like, praised. Like, like, if you're gonna do a release, do it properly. Like, have the limited edition box, right? That's great. But have the codex released on the same day alongside it, with all the units inside the limited edition box. Yes, the limited edition box, you can price it in a way that you get more value out of it. That is perfectly fine, but give us the option to buy the units in separate boxes on day one. Like, that's all I'm asking. I'm like,
That kind of like contradicts what they're trying to do.
How so?
Yeah, that would do like that would undo what they're trying to do, because what they're trying to do is force you to buy the box.
Yeah.
If you don't have to buy the box, then why make it?
Yeah. Well, it's basically they're putting less and less value in the boxes, which is what I've noticed. Like, alright, did you get the Black Templars box?
Oh no, of course not. I did see it, and I mean, it actually makes sense for the price. You do save quite a bit on it.
I believe it's 13 models, 13 miniatures.
Yeah, well, you see, that's the same thing. That was my same reaction. I was like, 13 miniatures for $300. I mean, like, man, that's a bit insane, isn't it? But then when I realized that 2 of them are characters, and one of them is a dreadnought, I was like, okay, that's a bit more understandable.
Yeah, I'm also looking at that going at that, like, 2 of them are characters. Why are characters so expensive again?
Oh, why characters are expensive? Well, the main reason characters are more expensive is because GW, they do enjoy making profits, but they still understand basic economics. So for things that you need less of, like for example characters, tanks, elites, they would be priced a bit higher than a common infantryman, because you need less of them, so it's like, you buy one of them and you're good to go. If they made guardsmen like the same price as a character per guardsman, that would be insane. So, they're not that mean just yet. So it does make sense, because you only need one character, don't you? And it's a nice model, which looks cool.
Why can't they price the characters like, like a normal guardsman?
I mean, it's a character, it's a specific sculpt. I mean, what I would prefer they do to characters, I mean, maybe shave off a bit of the price if they don't want to, it's fine. But just add like a few more options. So like if you want your, I don't know, character commissar to have like this position instead of that position, you could like do a bit of, accessorizing to your own miniatures. Like that would be great. But I mean, they don't have to. I prefer that they do though.
Okay, let's say you're a new person going to like a LGS or something, and you want to start off in Warhammer 40k. When you hear one model cost $54, I don't think they're gonna be listening to the whole like, you only need one of these characters spiel. I think the main draw of their conversation will be, this one plastic miniature is $54.
Usually you shouldn't start the conversation with the expensive stuff. Be like, oh, you can buy, what is it like, how many is that, like 10 guardsmen, was it? Like, say 10 guardsmen for $40 or something like that. We're talking about,
$40. It was $40 10 years ago.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming in USD it's about 40, right? No, about $35 in USD, and
it's
our place is about 56, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so $50 for 10 man.
Basically, like, if somebody comes in and goes like, okay, I would like to start Warhammer, what do I need to buy? So you need your HQ, your 2 troop choices, and possibly a heavy support. You can either get them start collecting, or you can get, them separately which you run through the list, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the heavy support makes sense. It's a big tank, it's a big model. It costs a little bit much, a little bit more. The squad, a little bit expensive, but you calculate it up. Like it's a squad of 10. Divide the box by 10. One guy is about $9. It's quite reasonable, right? Yeah. Then you get down to the character, and they see the price tag of the character, $54 for one miniature. That is going to stay with them. Yeah. This is going to be like one of the focal points of the conversation. Doesn't matter where you bring it up, because you can't hide that. You cannot hide that, because if you're hiding that, you're lying to them.
Yeah, well, I mean, you see...
So my thing on that is basically, if these characters are compulsory and you need them, why
they're not, though.
Why should they not be cheaper? Why is there not a second class of characters which are compulsory, which are your basic Space Marine captains, your lieutenants? I don't know why they keep putting out lieutenants. Your command squads, your Tyranid, your Tyranid warrior primes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Why is there not a second class of characters which is all points-wise in the game much cheaper, which they all are. Mm-hmm. The camera's gone off here. You can bring multiples of them, so price them cheaper.
There are those, right? Like, for example, say, I'm not really familiar with Gar, I'm quite familiar with Tyranids, right? Say, if I was building, a Tyranid list for a new person who's coming in, I'd be like, okay, you can get these, you get your gaunts, so they're pretty cheap, it's about $50, you get 12 gaunts, right? So you get those, then you need a HQ choice just to get into the game. I'd be like, look, I mean, there are these characters, which don't get them yet. I mean, it's something that you should keep an eye out if you want to, progress further on. Very cool. But for now, maybe you get, zoanthropes or warriors to build a Neurothrope or a Tyranid Prime. And, that's a much cheaper secondary sort of character option, which they can use as an HQ. And it's still a decent thing to use. It's not they're losing the game because they don't have a named character. No, not really. There you go, there's your two troop choices, your HQ, and you could already sort of play a small skirmish game with your pals at the shop.
But right now, a Space Marine captain, which is basically your stock standard faceless Space Marine leader character, right? Mm-hmm. Is $54.
It's not like a Tyranid Prime?
It's not like a Tyranid Prime. It's in those boxes. Lieutenants are about the same as well.
I mean, in the game thing, are they the same sort of position as a Tyranid Prime? Like a cheap HQ choice?
Yeah. That's why you can run 3 of them, and that's why they used to run 3 of them.
Ooh, get to start collecting?
But
I don't know.
Option, when the only option you have is to get the stock collecting, or you're going to spend a buttload of money, I don't think that's reasonable. I really don't think that's reasonable for...
Yeah, and I don't think this would be a good point to bring up, second-hand stuff, because, well, you're getting into a hobby. I think you wouldn't want to be getting second-hand, usually.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I started off with second-hand, but,
Yeah, but you had to plan for that.
Yeah, I did plan, so...
Yeah, you had to plan for that. A person just coming in, going, really excited and going, I want to get, my first army, isn't gonna be super happy if you go, oh, the best route is to go second-hand. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my main gripe with it, is I do not understand the pricing structure of these characters. Why did if you're going to do this for your named characters, okay, I could see your point in that, but
Yeah, it's just Lieutenant. Well, why is he $40?
Yeah, Lieutenant No Names Joe Schmo over there. why is he like, $40? I don't get it.
Why does he cost as much as like a Gene Stealer cult character who you can only run one of, when you can run like 5 of the lieutenants?
Yeah.
Ah, bit interesting.
Yeah, and why does the Commissar cost like so much more than like the Command Squad in terms of monetary value?
Well, I mean...
Yeah, the Commissar is
a Commissar?
character. Yeah. A Commissar is $45.
He is quite a vital HQ, though. Unless, you don't really want to have that extra morale boost. There are ways to work around it, but you have to kind of sit down and go, alright, I'm going to build my list specifically without a Commissar, and I don't think a new person would actually be into the whole, let's sit down for 30 minutes.
Like, a Commissar is something that, ticks off our prerequisites in terms of, like, he's very cheap to run. You want multiple copies of him if you want to use them properly, and, that's how they're designed to be around. And yet, he's $45. Whereas a Command Squad is literally a whole squad of dudes.
Who can act as HQs most of the time, right?
Yeah, who are HQs. So, what's going on there?
I mean, I don't know. For me, for my HQs, I usually... I have, stuff like the Swarm Lord or Tank Commander, where it's actually understandable why the box costs as much as it does, because, big model, you can customize it to a very high degree, but then... Yeah, for like a newer player, I've actually seen lots of people really want to get into like the big things like, tanks or monsters and usually the rule of thumb is, get lots of infantry before you get into the heavy support. So play your first game with just infantry and a cheap HQ, which in IRL money isn't very cheap, but yeah.
Yeah.
Very strange.
The best way to get started into the hobby and getting used to the game is to get the cheap HQs, but it is also the most expensive way of getting into the hobby. It's just counterintuitive.
Yeah.
They are going to do that, right? They'll make it so that the game is balanced around not the cheap HQs, but the expensive HQs. So it's a little bit more like Hero Hammer, right?
Lots of it pay to win now.
Then it goes into question of it's very pay to win.
Yeah.
So the best option is, option B, where they basically, have a second class of
Which they do
have a second class of HQs, which are much cheaper than the normal HQs.
Well, actually, I think I just thought of a factor that we may have overlooked. It's the fact that the HQs themselves are, they're a bit more expensive than a normal guardsman, because, you need like a special, that they look a bit cooler. But the fact is that they cost just a bit more. The thing that really drives up the price is that 10 guardsmen fit into one box. 1 HQ fits into one box, so it's a lot more expensive to package and ship and do all of that stuff when compared to, infantry box thingies. You see what I'm getting at? Like, for example, the price to send 1 orange would be like, you buy the orange, you pay like, I don't know, $2 to send it over. Say an orange costs $1, that's $3 you spend. Price to send 10 oranges, you buy 10 oranges, that's $10, $2 to ship them over, $12. So 1 orange costs 1/4 of 10 oranges. So you see, it's kind of like a lot cheaper than 10.
I understand the the economics of of shipping, of like multiple shippings, that kind of thing. But it's like, it's not that much. It really isn't that much. And they've been doing this before COVID. Way before COVID. When shipping was very, very cheap.
Did the price of shipping jump up?
Yes. By almost 4 times during COVID. So
well, I wasn't following up on the economic status of stuff.
Yeah. So it would make sense if they did it during COVID, but they've been doing it way before COVID.
Interesting.
To the point where it's like, it literally costs them a couple of dollars. It costs them like, less than $1 to ship per model anywhere in the world, essentially. They're such a large company. They've got like accounts and stuff like that with shipping companies, and they generally they send them like on with other things as well. So they're not going to ship one small character to wherever. They'll ship it with like a bunch of like restocks, all this kind of stuff, things that they actually need, right?
Yeah.
So that really saves them on costs. So the fact that they've continued to do this and only just keep rising, increasing the prices on these characters, I think it's just there's no excuse for it. It's just pure greed at this point.
Yeah. Say, do you remember how the first miniatures that you got and how you got into the hobby?
Yes, I do. I still have one.
What was it? What were they?
Let me bring it out. And I'm very sorry. The camera moved, and to all our viewers, you might see a bit of my hairy legs.
I think it's all fine.
Yeah, it's all fine. I'm not naked down there, so it's okay. Right, okay. These are 2 of my very, very first models that I painted.
Wow.
So this is a car skin. Oh, oopsies. A very old car skin. It's in metal.
Wow.
And it is exactly 3 colors. And this is a very old guardsman. That I painted. So this is how old the guardsman kit is, ladies and gentlemen. This is in plastic.
They have a new one, don't they?
They are the same kit with an extra sprue of heads.
Oh, that's nice.
That's not nice.
Well, you get more heads. I'm saying that the fact that you get more heads is nice.
Yeah, but they increased it by $10 more.
What?
Yes.
Oh no.
So, yeah.
Well, I guess I'm just gonna get easy to build ones now.
They don't sell the easy to build ones anymore.
What? Well, there go my guardsmen. Yeah, because I remember it was very interesting how I got into Warhammer. Because I always remember going to a Cockaboo, I think it's the PC cafe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then we'd always go walk past the shop, and I'd always be like, looks an awful lot like StarCraft. Well, I mean, StarCraft and Warhammer are quite similar. StarCraft was originally meant to be a Warhammer game, but then they split off into their own thing.
Well,
and I used to play...
Yeah, it's such an interesting story with StarCraft and Warhammer because that's the entire reason why Warhammer currently why Games Workshop currently is trying to get a lot of game developers to produce Warhammer games because they're trying to cash in on the next StarCraft essentially. They don't want to miss out.
Well, yeah, so then I was playing CSGO, and they released the Warhammer stickers, and I was like, oh, these look quite interesting. And then I, did some lore, got into the lore, and I finally was like, okay, well, let's see the prices. And I was like, well, went to the shop, and I was quite astonished by how pricey things were. So I sat down and I thought to myself, what could I do? And I was like, well, there's this thing called Carousel. And so I think my first ever thing that I bought was probably a box of Termagants. Then it was a Hive Tyrant. And then I found a very good Carousel deal for I think it was the Spearhead Detachment, and I really wanted to get a Tyrannifex, because I thought that they looked cool. And I got the Tyrannifex, 2 Carnifexes, another Hive Tyrant, and a Trigon. And I think those were my first 3 things that I got for Warhammer.
That's awesome, mate.
Yeah.
That's very similar to what I got when I first started Tyranids as well.
Ah.
Except it was from a Facebook marketplace.
Ah. So, I mean, there are always other ways to get your minis, though it comes at, an expense. Maybe it'll take longer, maybe it'll be less good quality. But if you don't know if you are fully going to invest yourself in the hobby, you just want to have a small test run, then I don't think there's anything wrong with buying a second-hand, group of guardsmen or warriors or Tyranid things or whatever army you're playing. Just playing a couple of games to see if you really want to invest yourself in the hobby or not.
Actually, right, if you're really keen on investing yourself into the hobby and you're really sure you want to go into this faction, it might be worthwhile buying an entire army that is built and painted already. Like a second-hand army.
Don't know if I agree on you with that one. Built and painted. Oh.
Those armies that are already built and painted, and somebody's selling them off because they want to start something new, right? You see those right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you can do is just do a bit of research yourself, buy a codex. That's the first thing you get. Find which units you want, and buy that army from these second-hand places that are built and painted, and play with that. You can of course repaint them later on, but 9 times out of 10, they're at least reasonably well painted.
Funnily enough, I never actually got a proper codex, and I only started using just printouts of the stats only not that long into the hobby, once I actually began playing at the store and stuff. I just kind of went for whatever I thought looked cool.
Well, yeah. You can of course go through that, but I don't know. It's more so just. I think buying an entire army off somebody in the long run would be cheaper for a new player.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Only problem with buying an entire army at once is that, well, if you want to paint it and it's already painted, some people want to strip their models. I personally wouldn't. I just prime over, paint over whatever they've painted. If you buy it, just straight, a bunch of, if they're selling the army on the sprues, if you buy an entire army at once, it can be a very daunting project to assemble and paint, 2,000 points.
That's why I suggested, buying a ready built and painted army, because you won't get hobby burnout. You will not get hobby burnout from that, because it's all built and painted. Start playing the game so that you know what you're doing. that way, when you know a little bit more about what's going on, then you can start like investing time, because I'm the sort of person that like puts great value on time rather than money, because time is money, like that common saying, time is money.
Yeah.
So I really wish that my first purchase, like in Warhammer, or how I got into Warhammer, was just an entire built and painted army. Because those first like 10 years of my hobby experience, I was all about the gaming rather than the hobby. And if I just spent a little bit more money on this hobby, I would have saved so much time on painting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It was quite the opposite for me. I really enjoyed assembling and sort of painting the models, and that might have been because the first few games that I played, well, at my local game shop against my friend, he was playing Tau at the time. Yeah, it was interesting. Sometimes, well, it was more balanced. We'd both win and lose, sort of, 50-50-ish. But at the store, I could never seem to win. And like to this day, I think I've only won 1 or 2 games at the store with my Tyranids. And, for me it was always not really about winning the game, more of just seeing my painted models actually on the table all together, and that was like the nicest part of the game, when it's like both the armies are set up, and you can see like what I can see what I have accomplished. That was always nice.
Yes.
And then you start removing models, and then it's a bit less nice, and it becomes sad.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going by, what the most common reasons, what I've heard as a store manager that people get into the hobby, and, what I've heard, people tell me, in my store, they want to play the game.
How many people, have you met who are playing Tyranids, whose reason for playing Tyranids was that they wanted to play Zerg, but on a tabletop?
Not very many.
Really?
Yeah. Most of the people I've gotten to play Tyranids was because I convinced them to play Tyranids.
Interesting.
Because I present Tyranids because they're my favorite faction in the best light possible, and Space Marines, in a very monotone light. Yes, they are the bulwark of humanity. Yes, they are the Emperor's finest warriors. Yes, they are also like warrior monks in space. Yes. But look at these, alien creatures that are dinosaur, insecto dinosaurs that come from out of the Milky Way galaxy. That has, we have no idea where they come from. They've just suddenly appeared and are encroaching on the galaxy, and when they come and invade a planet, they have this massive 3-stage attack, attack, where the genes of the cults rise up and cause a mini civil war in the planet, and then the infiltration specialists assassinate commanders and leaders. And then when the main Tyranid, High Fleet comes in, that's where the real fun starts, because that's when, the big bulk of, the swarm comes in and just whelms the defenses, while, larger bioforms just smash through the tanks and the walls. It's
actually very interesting how big the Tyranids are. I just still can't get over the fact that even, a gaunt is meant to be the size of a horse.
Oh yeah. That would mean,
that's insane.
That would mean, honestly, that guardsmen are pretty huge in the 41st millennium.
Actually, no, I can see a guardsman, just riding a gaunt into battle like a mount. It's a faithful steed.
No, because this guy, right? This guy over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I get a gaunt, just get gaunt.
He's a bit big, but I could actually see someone converting a guardsman riding a gaunt,
Okay, let me get a gaunt here, right?
Yep.
So this is a gaunt.
That's a hormone gaunt. Well, fine. Same difference.
Same difference. So this should be the size of a horse, right?
It's about the size of a horse.
So I think that this model, this guardsman, is about 6'6"
Maybe?
to a horse. Yeah.
Yeah, but I
So
mean...
in actuality, like every single one of these Imperial Guardsmen, they're like, you know, on the tabletop, are actually like really tall dudes.
Yeah, no, a guardsman
Really
compared to
tall.
today's standard of military is like an elite trooper. And they're
Yeah.
considered just, you know, what is it, cannon fodder, which is, you know, it just shows how insane 40k could be sometimes.
Yeah. Then
But it's also very funny when they're like, yes, you know, our battles, they're so big, they take whole planets. Like, the biggest orc war that there has ever been had less combatants than World War II.
Yeah.
Look at how big this conflict was. Spanned like so many planets.
like a
Had
million
20
guards,
combatants.
like a million guardsmen is a big deal. It's like, wait, there were several times in World War II where in one battle each side had 1 million men.
Yeah. I mean, usually, what seems to work is just adding a 0 to everything.
I usually add 2 zeros at the end.
Because I think there was something where there was, it was like a Tyranid invasion of Baal, where it was like, I forgot the numbers, I think it was like 3 million Tyranids, or was this, yeah, and then it was like 3,000 guardsmen. And then it's like, well, that's a lot of turns each, well, not guardsmen, Space Marines, that's a lot of turns each one has to kill. So if you just add a 0, right, you get 30 million Tyranids, and then you get, 30,000 Space Marines. And you'd be saying, but Aristo, that doesn't actually change anything. It's still the same amount of Tyranids in the ratio. And you'd be right. But with 30,000 guardsmen, you could Space Marines, you could actually see them bunkering down and trying to, you know, make a defensive.
Yeah.
So,
Where
you know, adds a bit more
3,000
realism.
Space Marines against, like, 3 million Gaunts, like, it's just like, that's not even a fight, bro. That's just like scraps on the dinner plate. Winston
Doesn't matter how
sent
well
more
armored
Australians
you
to
are.
die in Gallipoli.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like today's things, you're like, well, I mean, that's really not that many combatants.
Yeah.
And if you take into the account the fact that, you know, Tyranids are meant to be this, like, numberless swarm, it's like, well, how are they numberless if there's, like, what, 3 million of them? It's like, well, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but Earth has, like, what, a lot more people
Yeah.
than Tyranids, and they're meant to take down a planet? 3 million?
It's like, huh.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I could understand if there were 3 million bioships.
Ooh, that's a bit excessive now.
No. Remember, you know, in the stories, they blot out the stars when they come in.
Are those the bioships, or are those the spores and rippers? Flying
the-
rippers.
That's the, I believe that's the bioships.
Ah.
So in several of the Tyranid, like, recounts, right, like it is stated, like, you know, before any Tyranid invasion comes in, like, you know, the night sky is just pitch black.
Oh, there's all the shadow and the warp thing, right?
No, the Shadow of the Warp doesn't, like, do anything for visuals, for visual. It's, like, literally just the sheer amount of, like, you know, bioships that's just blotting out the stars, the night sky. Where it's like, oh, there should be a lot more bioships.
I've always wondered, right, like, on these planets, when Tyranid invasion comes, like, you know, everyone's probably knows that, you know, there's nothing much they can do at this point. So what do? Do they just, like, vibe until the first spores come down and they're like, alright, well, it's time to commit, you know, group suicide so we don't get eaten by Tyranids? Or what happens? Do they go into panic mode and just panic the entire time?
Yeah, you were saying about the chariots. Sorry about that, like, abrupt break.
Nah, it's all good. Oh, where were we?
Oh, I think we were talking about like the
Guardsmen's
about
and
the
Gaunt's.
but also like like the size of Tyranids and Gaunts and stuff like that.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I think it's mainly because guardsmen are a bit big. So I was just looking at one of the bolt action Soviets and one of my slightly customly made guardsmen, and I was like, wow, they're a lot bigger. But then I realized that I've used epoxy to give them what are they, ushankas and little coats, so they're a bit bigger than normal guardsmen, but otherwise they're very similar in size, just a bit bigger in stature.
How do I get rid of this stupid like? Okay, back on the models. Stupid Microsoft. Yeah.
So
Yeah, they're very big. Guardsmen, very chunky boys, big chunky boys, and also
not that big.
well, you know, they're 6'6" around there. You know.
Are they? Did someone do the math?
Well, I did the math, and it was like, oh yeah, they're about 6'6", something like that. You know. If this is like a horse, if like a Hormone God is around the size of a horse, yeah.
And they're around the size of a Hormone.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. So as you can see, right, like, you know, I've just applied the oil shades on my warriors. They're still very shiny, but if this thing will actually focus properly. Come on, you can do it. There you go, you can do it. So yeah, much darker.
Indeed.
Much darker, but more believable, I think.
Bit more grimdark.
Bit more dark. Thank you. Bit more grimdark. That's what I want. I mean, like, I like the whole idea of like Warhammer and Tyranids being like very grimdark, because I feel like one of the main reasons why I got into Tyranids was because I would never feel bad for losing when it comes to Tyranids. Because in my mind, right, like, whenever I lose a game with Tyranids, it's like, it's never really a loss. It's like, you know, oh, there's just more Tyranids coming in later on. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And if I lose a unit, it's like, that let her die, it doesn't matter. Whereas if I like lose Guardsmen or Space Marines, I'm like, ooh, the company command just got lost. Ooh, like, you know, oh,
yeah.
Lieutenant or my captain just died. Oh gosh, no, he's like, you know, a 200-year-old Space Marine veteran. Oh geez, that's bad.
Yeah.
Like, these are all seemingly irreplaceable losses, whereas like Tyranids, like, even if I lose like a big bioform, it's just like, it's like, you know, losing a single rice grain in like, you know, a bag of rice. It's like,
Yeah.
You move the pawns.
Sort of.
So like, you know, it's like the whole thing of like, you know, in this Tyranid lore, like, they always say they don't put great importance on a single organism. Even the Swarm Lord is recyclable. Like, it never truly dies. So, you know, losing anything doesn't feel like a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though with the Swarm Lord, I actually don't know, because it's like a very similar concept to teleportation. The way that, you know, the hive mind takes his memories and implants them into a new body.
Yeah.
Where, you know, when you teleport, it's said that your body gets, you know, unconstructed and reconstructed in the new location with your same memories. But is that truly you, or does that new thing think that it's you?
Yeah.
And we experience this every time we go to sleep, right? Where when we wake up, is it truly the same person that went to sleep yesterday? Or is it a new entity with our memories thinking that it's what we were yesterday?
Yeah, true. I think that's the primary reason why the swarm, like, you can only have one swarm lord in every hive fleet to avoid that exact same, like, conundrum.
Yeah. So perhaps it actually is, reincarnated instead of just having a new thing with its memories come to life.
Exactly.
Which would give, a lore reason for only having one at any given time.
Yep.
I wonder how they decide which hive fleet gets the Swarm Lord. Like, is it actually due to, how severe something is, or are some hive fleets just, have more, more priority given to them due to the status that they hold or something?
I think it's more so, if that particular hive fleet, I think every hive fleet has the STC fragment to build a Swarm Lord, but it's basically it's pretty expensive to build a Swarm Lord, and it's it's pretty intensive to build a Swarm Lord. So it's do I need one now? It's nah, maybe not. I can deal with them with just hive tyrants. But if it's a really big, heavily defender planet, where they're okay, this is gonna be a bit tough, they'll build a Swarm Lord to lead the assault.
That just makes me sad every time I look back and realize I just, threw my Swarm Lord into, I don't know, something that it dies to.
That's why I don't do that. That's why I don't do that. That's why I throw the hero duel at it. I'm oh.
Well, you threw the Swarm Lord at the Rubrikai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't die. It didn't die to it.
Almost did.
No, it didn't. It didn't take a single wound from him.
Did it not?
No.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Are you sure you're remembering the game correctly?
I think it was the Zangors, dude.
I think it was the Knight.
Or was it the Knight? Or was it no, it was the Knight and its stupid stubber.
Oh yeah,
and its heavy stubber.
Yup.
That did the most wounds out of anything. So this Imperial Knight shot its heavy Gatling, what the weapon's called again? I can't remember.
I think it was the heavy. I think it's the Avenger Gatling gun and the heavy thermal cannon or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, did nothing.
The heavy stubber though.
Yeah, the heavy stubber did 2 wounds, and the flamer did 1.
Yeah.
Very interesting. That's a nice note to end off at.
Yeah, let's end off this hobby rambles today. Thank you very much for reaching all the way to the end. We really enjoyed tonight's session. I'll have to do a little bit of cropping and editing today, but that's all cool. But thank you very much, Ari, for joining me.
Yep, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, and this is Bill from Dragon Tooth Miniatures signing off. Please remember to like and subscribe, and if you want us to if you want me to paint anything, just let me know, okay? Thank you very much, guys. See ya.